Welcome to our deep dive into the intricate world of defense procurement. Today we'll walk you through the 11 essential stages that ensure military needs are met efficiently and effectively. Because while it might seem like militaries just pick up a phone and say, "Yeah, we'll take one of those death lasers, please," the truth is, it's a tad more complicated than that. By the end of this, you'll be able to impress your friends at parties with your newfound knowledge of military acronyms and contract negotiations. So grab your helmets and flak jackets, metaphorically speaking, of course, because things are about to get bureaucratic up in here. Imagine a group of very serious people in a room, staring intently at a map with a giant coffee stain that looks suspiciously like a hostile nation. That, my friends, is basically how this whole process kicks off. First, the military identifies a capability gap, a fancy way of saying we're lacking something crucial.
Maybe their current tanks are about as effective as a chocolate teapot in a heat wave, or their communication system involves 2 tin cans and a really long piece of string. They then define specific technical and operational requirements because saying we need a tank that doesn't break down every 5 miles just isn't specific enough for government work. Once they've drafted a novel's worth of specifications, it needs approval from relevant authorities, a process that likely involves more meetings, memos, and probably a PowerPoint presentation or two.
This is where things get really exciting. Remember those budget arguments we just mentioned? Well, now they're happening on a much larger scale. This stage involves a delicate dance between military branches, each vying for a slice of the pie. Think of it like a high-stakes game of whose line is it anyway? Except instead of witty improv, they're armed with spreadsheets and economic forecasts. The goal? To convince those holding the purse strings that their particular need is the most pressing. Eventually, after much deliberation, funds are allocated, the defense budget is approved, and everyone breathes a sigh of relief. All right, so we've established the needs, secured the funding, now it's time to go shopping. But this isn't your average trip to the mall. This is where the military puts on its research hat and dives headfirst into the world of defense contractors. They investigate available technologies because nobody wants to be caught fighting a 21st century war with 20th century tech.
And of course, there are feasibility studies to be conducted. This involves a lot of head-scratching, number crunching, and probably a few "are you seeing this?" whispered exchanges as they try to decipher complex technical documents. It's all about assessing the viability, risks, and costs of each potential solution.
Remember that novel's worth of specifications we mentioned earlier? Well, it's time to dust it off and send it out into the world. This is where the military formally invites vendors to submit their proposals, outlining exactly what they're looking for and how much they're willing to pay for it.
Think of it like online dating, but instead of swiping left or right, they're meticulously evaluating bids from companies vying for their attention. The RFP process is all about transparency and fairness, ensuring that all interested parties have an equal opportunity to win the contract.
Of course, in reality, it's never quite that simple. There's a lot of back and forth clarification requests, and probably a few tense phone calls where someone threatens to pull out of the running if they don't get their way.
The proposals are in, and now it's time for the military to play the role of discerning customer. This stage involves a rigorous evaluation process where each bid is scrutinized with the intensity of a hawk eyeing its prey. Engineers pore over technical specifications, accountants analyze costs and financial aspects, and if they're really lucky, they might even get to witness some field trials or testing. Because nothing says we take this seriously like blowing stuff up in the name of research and development. It's all about making sure that the chosen solution not only meets their needs, but also offers the best value for money. This stage can take months, even years to complete, depending on the complexity of the procurement. Congratulations, we've reached the part of the process that makes everyone involved want to tear their hair out. The shortlisted vendors are brought back to the table, and the real fun begins. This is where the lawyers earn their keep, meticulously negotiating every last detail of the contract.
We're talking payment schedules, delivery timelines, performance guarantees, you name it, they're arguing about it.
There's a lot of posturing, a lot of bluffing, and probably a few threats to walk away from the table altogether. But eventually, after what feels like an eternity, a contract is finalized. Signatures are scrawled with varying degrees of enthusiasm, and everyone celebrates with a stiff drink. The ink is dry on the contract, the champagne's gone flat, and now it's time for the vendor to get to work. This stage involves the actual manufacturing or assembling of the equipment, a process that can range from mildly interesting to mind-numbingly tedious depending on your affinity for watching paint dry or robots welding metal. But it's not just about building stuff, it's about building it on time and within budget. There are always unexpected delays, material shortages, and the ever-looming threat of a global pandemic throwing a wrench in the works. And let's not forget the logistics of actually getting those shiny new tanks, planes, or submarines delivered to their intended destination. It's a massive undertaking, fraught with potential pitfalls, but hey, at least it's not the military's problem. Yet. The moment of truth has arrived, the equipment has been delivered, and now it's time to see if it actually works as advertised. This is where the military really gets to put the new toys through their paces, with a battery of tests designed to push them to their limits.
And if something breaks, explodes, or otherwise fails to meet expectations? Well, let's just say the vendor's going to be getting a very strongly worded phone call. This stage is all about ensuring that the equipment is not only functional, but also safe and reliable. Once everything's been thoroughly checked, double-checked, and triple-checked, the military can finally give their official stamp of approval.
Congratulations, the military now has a shiny new toy, but before they can unleash it on the world, they need to teach people how to use it. This is where the training wheels come off and the real learning begins. Soldiers, sailors, and airmen alike are thrown into intensive courses where they learn the ins and outs of operating, maintaining, and hopefully not accidentally firing their new equipment. Once everyone's up to speed, it's time to integrate the new equipment into the armed forces' existing operations. It's a messy, often chaotic process, but eventually, the new equipment becomes just another part of the military machine, ready to be deployed at a moment's notice. The honeymoon phase is over, folks. The new equipment is no longer shiny and new, and like any long-term relationship, it's time to talk about the M-word, maintenance. This stage involves setting up long-term contracts for ongoing maintenance and support, because even the most well-built machines need a little TLC every now and then. We're talking spare parts, software updates, and the occasional emergency repair when something inevitably goes wrong. It's a never-ending cycle of spending, but hey, that's the price you pay for having a well-equipped military. All good things must come to an end, even weapons of war. Eventually, every piece of military equipment reaches a point where it's no longer cost-effective to keep it running, and that's when it's time for the final stage of the procurement process: disposal. This can involve anything from selling off decommissioned equipment to other countries, to dismantling it for scrap metal, to simply parking it in a giant lot in the desert and hoping nobody notices. It's a surprisingly complex and often controversial process, fraught with environmental concerns, ethical dilemmas, and the occasional conspiracy theory about the government selling top-secret technology to the highest bidder. And there you have it, the 11 essential stages of defense procurement. Each step is crucial to ensure that military needs are met in a cost-effective, transparent, and efficient manner. We've journeyed from identifying needs to budgeting, from market research to contract negotiations, from manufacturing to maintenance, and finally to the bittersweet end of a piece of equipment's life cycle. So the next time you see a news report about a big defense contract or hear a politician pontificating about military spending, you'll be armed with the knowledge to understand the intricate process behind those headlines. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more insightful content. Until next time, stay informed, stay curious, and try not to accidentally bid on a decommissioned tank online.